Celebrating and showcasing some of the most amazing people around the world who are doing incredible things to make our world a better place. This is CUTV News. I'm Jim Masters. Thanks for joining us. Today we celebrate Carolyn Rubin. Carolyn is an independent executive director, as well as a certified coach and trainer of the John Maxwell Leadership Program. Today, Carolyn continues to add value to individuals to take them to the next level. Carolyn says it's her passion. She wants to make sure her clients are set up for success with the tools to do their job to the best of their ability. And she wants to make sure that they can develop from within. Carolyn says John Maxwell loves adding value to people. A leader, mentor, and coach, John Maxwell is the author of 100 books on the subject of leadership, which have sold 26 million copies and have been translated into 50 different languages. Maxwell's leadership program is based on the premise that leadership begins with developing ourselves to better connect with others. Now, as an independent executive director certified with the John Maxwell Team, Carolyn can embed herself within organizations to teach the Maxwell method of leadership, coaching, and even public speaking. Now, to find out how she does this and why so many clients are drawn to her methods and techniques, Carolyn Rubin joins me here on CUTV News today for an exclusive interview. Carolyn, welcome to CUTV News. It's an honor and pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We've had an opportunity to chat with you on the radio series, which is wonderful too. So I've had an opportunity to learn more about the incredible work that you do. You started your career in the healthcare industry, and you've had that affiliation for some 25 years. Tell us about what inspired you initially to want to work in such a wonderful field as healthcare.
I actually got into healthcare because of my family. I had several members of my family that was battling with cancer. I was a caregiver with many of those individuals. My stepdad actually had bypass surgery twice, so I was helping my mom with him. So it just made sense. Yeah, just get into the healthcare field. I became a medical assistant. I was a pharmacy technician, and I just felt that need to just be in there and be able to help.
So what was that process like? We initially went for the schooling and all the training, and then you really got all set and ready to go to dive right in, right?
I did. I went back to school. I was actually selling real estate. I had my own restaurant and decided, you know what, I'm just going to go back to school and become a medical assistant. I was a pharmacy technician at the time. I was one of the first to go through the state program to become a registered pharmacy technician in the state of Nebraska. And I was working retail pharmacy, and I went through the Omaha College of Health Careers, became a certified medical assistant. I was working in the pre-op department, I was working in urgent care, and then I went to work in the family practice and helping with the same doctor that was taking care of my stepdad, actually, the cardiologist that was taking care of him. But it was going to night school while I was working full-time as a pharmacy technician. And you know, going through that program made me realize just how much I enjoyed not only being in the healthcare field, but also working with individuals, working with physicians, working with patients, working with not just my family, but others that were going through much more complicated illnesses even than what my family was going through. It became very clear to me just how passionate I was for the entire healthcare field in a multitude of ways.
In a multitude of ways. And one of the things I think you mentioned that you discovered while working in the healthcare industry is in certain aspects sometimes, because there's so much that has to be done, it's such a busy field, many times it's an urgent situation when dealing with patients, that you have found that there isn't always that attention from a humanistic level.
Exactly right.
So from your many years working in healthcare, did your desire to then want to become a speaker, trainer, author, coach, specifically the coaching part of it, grow out of your existence within the healthcare industry? Did you find a void that wasn't being filled and an approach that really could be tailored a different way?
It did. It actually started with my grandpa. When my grandpa was diagnosed with cancer, one of the key conversations that we had was the health care that he was getting. And I had seen it, working in the healthcare field, but I was close to it because the patients that I worked with, I could have those conversations. I knew how to have those conversations just from being a caregiver. But then having a conversation with him, he was struggling with his physician, getting them to listen, not from a medical standpoint, his doctors were great, but from the standpoint of the staff. He was concerned with what was going to happen with my grandmother, right? If he passed away, which he did, we lost him to cancer, but he was concerned with, who's going to take care of grandma? And they didn't hear that.
Right.
So for me, it was like, okay, wait a minute. I need to step back and I need to look kind of with a wide angle lens, so to speak, at what's going on across the United States, what's going across all of the doctor's offices, and is everybody experiencing this? And as I got to looking at that, and as I was talking to different practices, talking to different patients, going into different areas, I saw that that was a trend.
Were you shocked by that?
I
to
was,
find that out?
actually.
You didn't realize that it was so prevalent.
Right. I really didn't realize that it was to the degree that it was, that people were not getting the connection with the healthcare field. They were asking the questions, but they weren't getting the answers.
Right.
It was like they just felt like they weren't being heard in certain areas. While they were getting great medical care, it was all the other areas, they just felt like they weren't getting the response. So
Did that bother you?
It did bother me.
Yeah, it spoke to you, didn't it?
It really did. And my grandpa made a comment to me one time. We were talking and he said, he says, here's the one thing I always want you to remember. And he said, if you'll take this and tell everybody, but he said, if you'll always live by this, he says, you'll always be successful. And he says, when you go to work every day, he says, if you'll walk through the door with the eyes of a patient, you'll always be successful.
That's unique. With the eyes of the patient.
Exactly. And it does. It makes you stop and think about what that patient's going through and what they're worried about and what they're concerned about. So I started talking to practices, started talking to people that are working at the practices and mentoring them. And even when I was teaching at the colleges and I was talking at conferences and speaking to physicians, I would give that same message to them. I said, this is what my grandpa used to always say. And I want you all to just remember it, because when that patient walks through the door, they're not just concerned about what the doctor's going to tell them. They're concerned about who's going to take care of mom, dad, brother, sister, baby, their sons, their daughters. So you have to hear them holistically. And so, gave them kind of a different twist on how to take care of that patient. And it was really, an eye-opener for them as well. It was a different way to connect with their patient. It was a different way to talk with their patient, a different way to communicate with their patient. From that point on, it was all about not just being a healthcare consultant, but being a mentor, being a leader, being a coach, being a trainer, and being able to provide that patient with not just quality medical care, but quality financial care, quality communication, quality, everything that patient needed.
Everything they needed.
In every aspect.
So part of the training I mentioned in the introduction to our interview on CUTV News was this connection with John Maxwell and the leadership program design thereof. Tell us a little bit about what spoke to you in terms of that particular leadership program and what it was about that approach that you wanted to apply to what you do.
I love John's message. John adds value, and he loves adding value to people, which is what I love to do. That's what speaks to my heart, and that's where my passion is at. I first started taking courses through the John Maxwell University, how to be a better leader and how to communicate better. He also has a book out, as far as knowing your dream and understanding that. And it's actually 10 questions that's in a book, but it's really just understanding more about, being a better person and being a better leader. And I wanted that professional growth. But the more I heard John's message, which I wanted so I could be a better leader and better mentor for my team, the more I realized as well, I wanted to become more of John's team. So I went through his program. I became a certified coach. I joined his mentorship program, and I went on to become an executive director for the John Maxwell team as well, because I want to be able to use his coursework and be able to put that in any organization. So not just healthcare, but whether they sell insurance, whether it's healthcare, whether it's product management, it doesn't matter what corporation. I can go in and I can help with communication skills, leadership development, professional growth, because people want to be better at their jobs. They want to grow within an organization. They want to become better at what they do, or maybe they want a whole new lifestyle, but they're afraid to go after it, you know.
Absolutely right. So this approach gives them the confidence that they need to be able to go after it, to take the risk. Because sometimes people are afraid of change. They're afraid of the unknown, so they don't move forward because they, oh, well, I'm not sure how this is going to work out, how it's going to pan out.
Correct.
So part of this approach is to give them that confidence that you can do it, right?
That's exactly right. Today, with healthcare changes, patients are more responsible for out-of-pocket expenses, right? There's more and more dollars that patients are supposed to pay. And the first thing that happens when a patient walks into an office is the patient's told, you owe $1,000.
Before they even...
And it's like, can we
pay the copay first?
Can we, yeah,
can we have your insurance card right away?
Or can we take them out of the waiting room to where everybody hears that?
Sometimes you don't even get a hello, how's your day going? You get insurance and copay.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. Can we take
You'll
them
get
out
it,
of
but
the,
I mean, how about a hello?
Yeah. Can we take them
I'm
out
bleeding
of the
from the
waiting room?
arm. No
Right.
hello?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, how can I help you?
Yes. Exactly.
No, that's changed a lot.
It has.
That sort of bedside manner approach has changed.
Yeah.
So do you find that people are craving that more? Do you find there's anything about maybe societal changes because everything is ramped up and moving so fast? Everything is so, press a button, everything's done for you. Technology advancements, which are wonderful,
right,
but have taken away that human connection?
It's very much taken away the human connection. You know, and it's funny you say that because I was at a conference last year and participated in that conference. And the whole gist of the presentation that I did was actually on the 5 generations and the difference between the 5 generations. And it was a panel discussion, actually. And we had from the baby boomers all the way down to the millennials and the X generation. And the difference between all of us, because when you got to the X generation, they didn't want to talk. Everything had to be by text.
Yeah. No verbal communication
whatsoever. No verbal communication.
No expression.
They didn't want to pick up the phone. They did not. It was either email or text, and that was it. In today's society, you look at across everywhere. I mean, there's still several of us baby boomers that, you know, we want to have the communication. We need to talk.
Bounce ideas off each other.
Questions, right?
Facial expressions.
Exactly.
To hear the voice.
Because a lot of times millennials don't know how to have that conversation.
And a lot of times there's issues that they run into, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's texting or emails, it can be misconstrued just in how it's written, or if you've capitalized certain words, they think you're yelling.
Right.
And sometimes, and what happens is people assume the tone.
Right.
And tone is everything. And that might not at all be the tone or what the person initially wanted to get across to you. But if you were in the room together like we are right now here in the studio, it's a totally different approach.
It is.
Than if you and I were texting each other.
Right.
Or emailing. Which have their merits, but it doesn't really
and how do you be a better leader?
Human connection.
Or how do you become an influencer?
Right.
If all you're doing is tweeting or texting or emailing. If you've lost your voice.
Or just putting up photos.
Yes.
Perfectly photoshopped photos.
Exactly.
That don't represent your real life or who you are.
Right. Yeah. You know, if you're just doing that, and you're not using a voice,
So has our society gone in the wrong direction where we are rewarding that, sort of the Instagram world, where all you do is throw a photo up there of you having an ice cream cone and you get 5,000 people that all of a sudden are now following you and liking you. They don't know you, they've never met you, they never will, but that photo of you with the ice cream cone will circumvent somebody else who's actually out there in the trenches doing incredible work. We've sort of gone in that direction as a society, haven't we?
Yeah, in some ways we have. In some ways we have.
So do you find sometimes you're fighting the tide? Are you having to readjust because of all of that happening in life in general, not just healthcare industry, but in general? Are you sort of
I think
paddling uphill or
sometimes,
upstream?
It depends on who you're talking to and what generation or what corporation. It used to be all about the titles.
Yes, right.
Right?
Top down.
Top down. It used to be all about the titles. If you can get people to realize that it's not about the titles anymore, it's about the value that you bring to your staff. It's about the values that you bring to your employees, the value that you bring to yourself. Then you have somebody who truly has a very successful organization. You have somebody who truly has a good understanding of what it means to be a leader, right? So it's not about the title. It's about the growth you bring to those who are a part of that organization.
And maybe helping you achieve your own dream.
Exactly.
Because
achieve
it's
the goals of the company.
The overall goals and the mission.
Right.
So more teamwork, more camaraderie, more of a communal, roll up the sleeves and participate. And
the leader's not afraid to jump in and be a part of the work.
And leadership roles have changed, right?
They have.
You used to be the boss up in the ivory tower, and nobody ever saw whoever that was, and there was no engagement with the rest of the staff. But now the definition of leader is changing for the better, right?
Right. It absolutely is, because if you don't have the engagement, you don't have a successful company.
How do you define in today's world, through your methods, what an effective leader actually is, since that's changed so much?
An effective leader has to be willing to listen to the team. They have to be able to not just listen, but take action.
And not just give directives.
Right.
Right.
So there's leaders who will, put out employee surveys, for example. They'll put out employee satisfaction surveys, but they never do anything with them. Mm-hmm. And then there's leaders that will put out employee satisfaction surveys and then gather everybody together and say, how do we fix this?
What can we do?
Those are the ones that are engaged.
Right.
Those are the ones that will bring somebody in and say, let's put a program in place. Let's train, let's provide them with what they're asking for. We have this group that wants to learn how to communicate better. Or the communication across the entire organization is not there. So how do we make that communication better? And that starts with the top down.
Because sometimes you can be in environments, I've been in environments, where different departments are actually competing with each other.
Exactly.
They're not necessarily...
They're in silos.
We need this and we need that and we have to be, and there's almost adversarial situations amongst departments within an entire company, which does nothing but drag everything down, right?
And I've been in situations where it's like, you're in this department, you're not allowed to help that.
Have any communication with those people at all, right?
You can't, corporations today cannot afford to be in silos. You just can't, and when it comes to being a great leader, whether you're a CEO or whether you're just a divisional leader, you have to be able to see what's going on. You know, so you need to be able to recognize what's happening, and you have to be able to have that conversation and say, how do we fix this? But then it's taking that next step and mentoring those, but it's also being able to say to upper management, how can we get involved? How can we make this better? And not be afraid to have a voice. Sometimes people are afraid to have a voice because if I have a voice, I might get fired. If I have a voice, I might not have a job.
Sure, right.
So we continue to just do the same old grind. And we don't say anything.
And get frustrated.
And we get frustrated. So you have employee burnout. You have employee dissatisfaction. Employee satisfaction surveys go down. You know, you have a multitude of things that can go wrong, right? You have sales that might start tumbling. And we've seen that. How many businesses have we seen
all of a sudden,
that have just
boom.
all of a sudden, their CEOs are being changed out, right? There's new management that's being put into play. And all of these big corporations, well, there's a reason for that, because they're seeing sales drop. They're seeing employees that are not satisfied. And it's all because of the fact that they're not being heard. So it's about developing the leader within. And it has to start at the top. But it's about allowing those at the bottom to become a leader. Train them.
To give them the tools they need to be able to.
Set them up for success. Set them up for success. Let them live their dream. Let them climb the ladder. Let them become a leader of tomorrow.
Very important. Is the focus of your work specifically the healthcare industry? Are you working predominantly with people in the healthcare industry since you have that illustrious background, or are you working with a myriad of different corporations, organizations, as well as individuals in a variety of industries across the board?
That's the beauty of the John Maxwell program, is it works across the board. It will work with any corporation across the board. It works well within the healthcare industry because it allows new physicians to understand what leadership is all about. It allows the front office people to learn how to communicate and connect with patients. But it also allows corporations such as life insurance agents to understand how to communicate with new customers or clients. It may be car salesmen. It may be, a chain of grocery store. It doesn't matter what the corporation is, it all works. And it's helping them understand really how to mentor individuals, how to allow people to become an influencer, how to let them become a leader, how to grow them to where they can be the leader of tomorrow, how to build mentorships within a corporation. So it doesn't really matter if it's healthcare, if it's automotive, if it's grocery store chains, if it's pharmacy chains. It really doesn't matter what type of industry it is. And it can be one-on-one, it can be group, it can be national conferences, it can be a women's group, it can be a men's group, it doesn't matter.
So it's everyone?
It's anyone and everyone.
Anywhere, all across the board. That's incredible. You've also been toying with writing a book, I heard, too, huh?
Yes,
Tell us about that.
It's kind of motivational and it's inspirational. My tagline, we were talking about taglines earlier. So mine is actually empower your value, keep your strength, live your dream. From growing up as 6 kids, I was the second oldest of 6 kids. You fight hard sometimes, to get where you're going and to achieve what you want, to have a voice. I have done that, to get where I am at today. I have a technical degree as a medical assistant. You know, I've had people say to me, you don't have a bachelor's, you don't have a master's, you're not going to get where you want to go. Guess what? I got where I want to go, and I'm still going. I'm still growing.
Where does that passion come from?
From within. My passion comes from within.
And that's what you show
My
people.
passion for growth, my
important.
passion to add value to people, my passion to have others continue to grow and live their dream. It's very important to me because I don't ever want people to think they can't get where they want to go, because they really can. If they truly want it, if they truly desire it, there is a way that they can get there. And I don't want anyone to ever say, you can't do it. It's not available for you. It's not there. You're a single mom with 2 kids.
So you're stuck in that forever.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
You can.
Right.
And I'm living proof of that. Keep your strength, live your dream.
So you help people get to that point, to be able to go from situations where they don't necessarily see it within themselves when they look in the mirror, but you give them, it's a confidence building as well that's happening. It's a reassurance. It's sort of holding their hand, but also giving them the tools and resources to be responsible for their own life, because obviously you can't be with them 24/7.
That's exactly right.
So you set up the scenario where they have the tools and things to call upon when they need it in order to be a great leader, to be a satisfied, fulfilled human being, right?
That's exactly right. I can't pay their bills. I can't tell them how to live their life as far as day to day and 24/7, but I can provide them with the tools. I can provide them with the coaching or the mentoring. I can give them the skill set to be able to do it.
What do you think makes your approach different? There's a lot of, I know we were defining it as a leadership coach, sales coach as well, but what do you think, through your perspective and your experience and the passion that you evidently have and the enthusiasm for life, all of those things, and what else combined do you think makes you stand out and set you apart from others out there who may do similar work?
I think what sets me apart, or what maybe makes me a little bit different, is the fact that I can connect with so many people. I know when I speak at conferences, whether it's on the local level, the state level, the national level, when I'm speaking with individuals or even doing the one-on-ones, you know, just like when I met with Vincent, it's that ability to connect with them. And I think it's because of how I was brought up. It's because of my mentor, which was my grandpa. It's the life lessons that I've learned through his mentorship, through my growth with the John Maxwell Team, through my growth just with life in general. But it's sitting back and it's listening first. It's understanding, it's hearing, and it's connecting with the individual. It's not just being a life coach. It's being a friend to a degree, because you have to earn the trust and the respect of the individuals. And you do that by adding value, by setting people up for success, by providing them with the skills and the knowledge that they need and they want. And if you're doing that with your heart and you're really giving them 125% of everything that you have, and they can see the fire and the desire and the passion in everything that you do, and they know that at a moment's notice, if they need to have that cup of coffee so that you can give them that inspiration to keep them going, and you're going to do it. It may just be a virtual cup of coffee and you're on the phone. They know they're going to get that. And I think it's that genuine, true mentorship, and knowing that regardless of what's going on, I'm going to be there. And I'm going to tell them how it is. I don't sugarcoat. I'm very transparent. What they see is what they get.
Exactly.
And that's real key. I believe in transparency. I do not believe in sugarcoating things. I do not believe in, hype. I don't believe in, making things up just to make myself look, bigger than what I am. I believe in just giving them everything that I can give them.
Right.
And it's setting them up.
Because you've been there.
I've been there.
That's the key. It isn't like you're doing this because it's a fad or it's the hot thing to do.
Right.
You're coming from not only executive experience within the healthcare industry, but life experience as well.
Exactly. I didn't go into coaching because everybody's doing coaching. I went through the John Maxwell program for professional growth for myself so I could bring more for my team and for the physicians that I was working for and be able to add value to them. And it became evident through John Maxwell how much he loves to add value. And there's 20,000 coaches in his program. He didn't need one more, but I needed him and what he brought to everything. He goes to Guatemala, he goes to Haiti, he goes, everywhere.
Really immerses themselves in the cultures, yeah.
Exactly, but for me, it was just being able to say, you know what, I can add one more tool to make somebody successful. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. You call yourself an independent executive director.
Correct.
How do you define that?
It's actually because we're not truly paid by John Maxwell. We don't work for John Maxwell. We are certified through the John Maxwell Team, and we have the ability to use his course content when we go out to teach or to train. We can use it, or we can use our own content, but we're not paid by John Maxwell. We're not employed by John Maxwell.
You're independent.
We are independent, but we have the rights to use his material.
Now, sometimes when you're working with an organization, I would imagine you also need to embed yourself into the organization.
That's correct.
Really to observe it and to see the way things are operating and where the tweaks need to be made, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's what I've done for 25 years. And that's what it's all about. If you don't, how do you know where they need to make changes, right? And I've had individuals, I've worked for companies where somebody will come in and they'll just say, oh, you're doing this all wrong. And they've spent an hour with someone. And I'm like, and you could tell that by spending an hour with them. Really? How did you come to that conclusion? For me, if I'm going to go in and if somebody says, so you might say, Carolyn, we want you to come in and just observe and tell us, is there anything we can do differently? Because here's the challenges we're having. I'm going to say, Jim, I can, but here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to come in and I'm going to sit down with your team for an entire day, and I'm going to watch them, and I'm going to be this fly on the wall, and I'm going to observe them, but I want an entire day to be able to do that. Is that going to work for you? Because the only way I'm going to be able to tell you what may be right or wrong is to really work beside your team. I want to be able to see, what are they doing? What are they saying? What are their challenges? What are their, skills that they may have, may not have. You know, what are their conversations that they're having with me, you know?
Right.
And I want to be able to have that opportunity to just be a part of the team for the day. Let me have the day and just be part of the team.
And are you taking notes? Is there an assessment that's
Absolutely.
happening? And then is there a report that you give to
There is.
the management?
There is. So there's a report. It's depending on how it's set up. So there can be gap analysis that are done that just says, really, here's where I see there's things missing. There's assessments there's leadership assessments, team assessments that you can do that will kind of tell you maybe what skill sets are missing. But if I'm just going to go in and sit with the team, then at the end of the day, it's really where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses, and where are their opportunities. Now, there's also a fourth element to that, and it's a threat. So if you're doing a true SWOT analysis, it's a threat to the organization. Where are some of the threats that are seen? That's really for the corporation to say, here's where we see threats within our organization. Okay, they can tell me that piece. But if I'm sitting with the team, well, here's the strengths that I see, right? So they have great communication style, but their weakness might be, you know, they don't know how to close a sale, or they don't know how to connect with an individual. Here's where I think we can change that, you know, and here's where a weakness might be. You have a bad attendance problem.
Right, exactly.
We have to fix that.
Fix that.
Yeah.
How often sometimes are the threats the conversations that happen at the water cooler?
Exactly. You know, and that's exactly right. You know, people will take outside of the corporation what you don't want them to take outside of the corporation, you know, and it is about the work environment sucks, you know,
Yeah.
we don't know, you know, the boss has said this and, you know, we're all working 10, 12 hours a day and they're never happy.
Or they take their personal issues happening at home
And they come into the office.
And they're moody and argumentative, and
then
that too can be.
Exactly right. It comes into play as well. You know, so it's truly about, you know,
A balance.
yeah. And you've got to get that work-life balance back in play. You've got to figure out how to put a quality back into an atmosphere.
Because everybody wants to feel
quality back.
appreciated, right?
That's
They want to
exactly
feel,
right.
like you're saying, valued and appreciated at all levels.
At all levels.
Like everybody's making a contribution.
Right.
There's a reason why everybody's there, and you're not there just because you're, you know, a cog in the wheel. You are valued and important in what you do is,
Right.
and it's respected as well.
Exactly. Exactly right. And you know, people will say, well, you just got a raise. What more do you want? Well, you know, it's not
Like
all
it's a
about
favor.
that. Right.
Right.
You know, and while the raise is great, what I want is I want to be that team leader. Right? I want the ability to be the team lead. What do I need to do to get there? Well, you're not qualified. Well, what do I need to do
Well,
to be
here
qualified?
I am to, right.
Tell me,
Right.
train me, you know, what do I need to be or what do I need to do to be qualified? Train me. You know, so one of the things that I love to do when I'm in an organization is to look and see what conferences are coming up, and they can be local, right? They can be free, conference calls even. You know, what webinars are coming up that
It's
they could
important.
attend? What can I put on the table? What lunch and learn? Let me bring in a lunch and learn. I'll
Lunch
do a
and
free
learn,
lunch and
yeah.
learn for your team.
Like that.
You know, I'll take 30, 60, 90 minutes. Let me come in, I'll do a free lunch and learn for your team. It can be on communication, it can be on team building, it can be on leadership development. I'll do a free lunch and learn. It adds value to the team. They thank their leadership, their management team for it. They feel valued, and it's a win-win situation. You know, and that just moves mountains.
Now, do you travel around the country and
I do.
beyond? You can work with companies and individuals and organizations regardless of almost
Doesn't-
where they are, right?
Right. It doesn't matter where they're at.
Could even be
And
international.
it can be international. It can even be over the phone. It can be a webinar. It can be virtual. So if they don't want, you know, because in some companies today, they have people that work from home.
Yeah, a lot
right,
of that.
and there are a lot
That's
of companies that they outsource, right? So they have employees that are in India or in Pakistan,
Sure,
or so they're like, well, we have employees that are international and here. We can't bring them all in. Not a problem. We'll do a virtual. We'll do a virtual lunch and learn. We'll put it up, and we'll have everybody attend. Let's get the value to every one of your team members. 90-minute lunch and learn. It's not going to cost you anything except for those 90 minutes for your team to attend.
And what comes out of that lasts a long time.
It's value add to that corporation for those employees.
And it's priceless.
That's exactly right.
So you also do speaking engagements, conferences.
I do.
How do you engage your audience when you do that?
I love speaking. I do. And so I tell my personal stories. I'll always throw in personal stories when I'm speaking because it puts life experiences. They can relate to life experiences. And I'll also ask questions to the audience. So it engages the audience into what I'm saying as well. And I'll ask them, has this happened to anybody out there, what, and I'll ask them to tell their story, and what's happened at your work, or when has this happened to you? So we can kind of converse and we bring it all into reality, so whether it's, it might be something about patient engagement. Sometimes it's about physician behavior. Sometimes it's about physician engagement. Sometimes it was on the revenue cycle side and all the changes that were going on the healthcare arena. So it just doesn't matter. I'm going to a conference next week at Becker's. I'm not speaking at that one. They asked me to actually just come in and review and audit that conference for them.
Cool, yeah.
But in March, I will be speaking at HIMSS, and that's on patient engagement. And so I'll be speaking on behalf of Instamed at HIMSS for that one. So, but it's getting the patient or getting the audience engaged in the conversation. It's asking questions, but it's sharing stories.
Sharing stories.
And it's providing them, again, with information that's pertinent for them, that they can take back, that will help. But it's throwing in the skill set, the leadership assessment, or the communication, how to connect with patients. So depending on what the topic is about is where I'll throw in those leadership skills, or the communication skills, or the sales skills. So just depends on what I'm speaking on.
So your approach is not one size fits all or cookie cutter. You have your certain things you call upon, but within that umbrella, you tailor it to the needs of the individuals and the companies, right?
That's exactly right. You cannot do a cookie cutter approach. There's no way. I have so many presentations stored on my computer. I actually had to get a larger drive. Got an external drive. I had bought a larger iPad and with a larger drive. Otherwise, it doesn't hold them all. You just keep building. You just keep building because you have to tailor it to what
keep moving forward.
Their needs are. It's exactly right.
Why do you love this so much, this work that you do? Obviously, as I said to you previously, before we even came into the studio, you're very enthusiastic.
Yes.
You have a real thirst for life. You have a real passion, a real drive. What drives you, and where do you think this passion is coming from? And why do you love doing the work you do so much, helping others in the way that you do?
I think it's just my love for life. It's my love to make sure that everyone can succeed and everyone has a chance. I want everyone to be valued, respected. I talk to my mom as much as I can. I try to talk to her every night. It doesn't always happen. She's very proud of me, but she never had the opportunities that she wishes she had. She didn't finish high school, of course, with 6 of us kids. That's probably a reason why.
Right.
But there's so many people that wish they could have done more, would have done more, should have done more, if only.
Would have, should have, could have.
Exactly.
Which you
but
always
so
hear,
many
right?
people, and college, I won't say college is not important, because college is important. College degrees are important. But there's several people that they didn't have those college degrees. They weren't able to get them when they were younger, or for what there was circumstances that, you know, they weren't able to. It doesn't mean that they can't have a career. It doesn't mean they can't be successful.
Right.
It doesn't mean it won't happen. You know, but I do have a love for life. But I have an even greater love for helping people and for adding value to people and making sure that people are successful. My granddaughter is going to be, my oldest granddaughter is going to be 21 in March. And one of the things that I keep telling her is that, you know, you can do whatever you set your heart to doing. You know, you can be whatever you want to be. And don't let anyone tell you any different. She wants to work for Marvel.
Oh, wow.
She wants to work in design and be in theater, and
Very creative and
yes,
sure.
loves doing that. She's going to go to school and get a degree in business, so that way she
got that background.
can have that background and then go into theater arts and kind of have that whole piece
And
pulled
understand
together.
all elements, understand what all
Exactly.
the other people are doing.
Yep.
And appreciate what they're doing as well. The writer, the camera person, the
That's
accountant,
exactly.
the lighting person, whatever it
Yes.
is, the animator.
Yes.
And appreciate that.
It's exactly right.
It's
But
the best way
she's
to
like,
do it.
you know, and she calls me Nana. But she's like, you know, Nana, people are like, theater, why do you know, that's crazy. Why do you, and I said, don't let anyone talk you out of your dream.
Right, right.
You know, don't let anyone talk you out of your dream. And again, keep your strength. live
Look
your
at
dream.
Lin-Manuel Miranda, who created Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah, he had a dream growing up in Washington Heights, New York City.
That's exactly
And
right.
stuck with it, and tremendous success.
And that's what it's all about, right? It's about ensuring. I could just sit back. I mean, I could have sat back a long time ago and said, I have this great job,
Everything's good.
everything's good, and I'm just going to keep,
Coasting.
yeah. But that's not who I am.
No, you can't coast.
That's not who I am. I've never been that way. When I went back to school to be a medical assistant, I was mentoring people and helping those that were struggling.
So it's in your DNA.
It really is.
It's a reflection of who you actually are as a person.
Yes. You know, I was invited back to be an adjunct instructor at the same school I went to school and graduated from. So I was an instructor there. Then when Allegiant Health opened their School of Medical Assisting, I was asked to come be the instructor for that school. So I was the instructor for that school. From there, I created my own program, and I taught that at Iowa Western for 5 years. And I actually had a student, you talk about examples. I had a student that came through that course, and it was a billing coding course with the AAPC that I was teaching there. And she came up to me after one of the classes, and she's like, you know, you're my last hope. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, she had already gone through the course twice.
Tried everything, yeah.
Yes, she had failed the national exam 4 times, because you're allowed to take it 2 different times. And she's like, I'm going to go through it one more time, but if I don't pass, I'm done.
I'm doing something different.
And I said, well, okay, let's talk about this. I said, why are you not passing the exams? So we had a long discussion, because she was acing all of the studies, you know, everything we were doing in class.
But the exam.
She knew the stuff. You know, she was, her oral exams, her studies, everything she was doing fine. So I said, okay, we've got to talk about this. Well, she had test anxiety.
Test anxiety, right. The
Nobody
pressure.
took the time
It's a
to
real thing.
understand why she kept coming back.
Well, she'd be great throughout the rest of the year, but then when it came to those major tests,
Yes.
boom.
She failed them.
That happens to a lot of people.
It really does.
Right.
So we put a program in place. I worked with her. I mentored her. We did mock exams. So she would stay after class, and we would do, because the exams were 5.5 hours. So we did mock exams. I sent mock exams home with her, and her family got involved. They would give her mock exams and time tests at home. So we did this for 3 months. So by the time the course was over and it was time for her to sit for the exam, guess what? She passed the exam. No more test anxiety. But nobody took the time.
Carolyn Rubin touch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody took the time to listen
Right.
or to ask the question.
That's what you did. And it's simple, but you did it.
Right.
Which is amazing. What would you say to somebody watching right now who maybe they are considering connecting with you and availing themselves of the opportunity to really benefit from your services and from your perspective and your approach, and they are at their wits' end, they are at that last juncture? What would be something you would say to somebody watching right now to motivate them to make that connection with you?
I would say call me. Go to my website, carolynmrubin.com. There's a contact page right there. My phone number is on that contact page. Call me.
Because you can really...
I am here to help.
I can see in your eyes that this really means a lot to you.
It does.
This is deep stuff for you. As you're helping others grow, you're growing with them.
That's exactly right.
There's nothing better.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
It's not just helping others. You always, if I'm growing them, I'm growing within myself.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's it. A life
The
well
leader
lived.
always grows within.
You're amazing, Carolyn. It's a real honor and pleasure to have you here. And thanks for sharing your stories, your personal story, your career background, and all the wonderful successes you've had, but successes that you've transferred to other people in their lives to help them achieve greater things that probably they never thought they could achieve within companies, organizations, and individually. And I think that motivation and that spirit that you have is very infectious, and I think it really has made tremendous differences and will continue to through your efforts. So thanks for sharing it with us here in CUTV News. We wish you continued success in everything that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I loved being here, so thank you very much.
It was terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us.
You bet.
Through her undying dedication to her work, her keen sense of the human condition, and her compassionate ways, Carolyn Rubin truly is making a difference in our world and making our world a better place, one person at a time. To learn more about Carolyn Rubin and all of her wonderful work, go to her website, carolynmrubin.com. For CUTV News, I'm Jim Masters. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.